Well, hello there, ladies and gents. Great to see you again. Welcome back to Game Changers, the lessons you never learned in school. I'm Ryan Ruff here, your moderator, but as always, I'm joined by Barry Garapedian of Mag 7 Consulting, and super excited to be joining you guys today for another great conversation. Of course, we chat through a lot of these life lessons that, of course, were never learned in school, but really they're principles of success and achievement in both life as well as your career. These are some of the lessons that Barry is working with so many of his young minds through Mag 7 Consulting, setting them up for success in their personal and their professional lives. And boy, do we have a good one that we're going to be diving into today. But before we get into the nitty gritty of everything there, let's go ahead and say hi to Barry. Barry, good to see you this morning. How you doing?
Ryan, it is great to be here. I'm looking forward to today's topic.
Yeah, it's a good one. We really do have a good one, Barry. It's a selfless topic that we're diving into today, and it takes a level of effort to achieve this. So, Barry, why don't you tee things up for everybody today? What are we talking about? What's the topic?
The topic is to be a value creator, meaning you are going to be the first to create value for someone else with no reciprocity. And what that really, really means is it's a way to connect with people. But more importantly, it's very counterintuitive. You think that you're helping, you want to help the other people, but more importantly, it's a way for you to gain a huge advantage and be the best version of yourself. So I love the whole value creation strategy.
Yeah, I love it too, Barry. And this idea of reciprocity is a very important element of this conversation, which of course you guys, as our audience, are going to hear come into play a little bit. But let's stay high level for a moment, Barry. Why would you say just this topic, this idea of being a value creator, is just so important in the first place?
Well, most people don't do this. So if you want to be different, you need to be doing something that's disruptive, which means being more interested than interesting. Be curious about other people and how you can be a pain detective and figure out how they are possibly suffering. So with this strategy, it's about uncovering things about somebody else that you could potentially help. You could refer someone, you could help them in many other ways. So I like the strategy, but I've been doing this ever since I was a little boy of creating value. And there's different ways we can create value, which we're going to get into under this discussion.
Sure, absolutely. When we're breaking down value, I mean, that's a very broad term, right? I mean, we've heard it time and time again. You want to create value, you want to receive value for maybe the goods or services you're paying for. So, in your mind, when we're talking about value by way of gaining an advantage in life and creating some great relationships, but also being able to provide value to somebody, break down that word value. What are these different types of value that you and I have chatted about in the past?
Ryan, there's three kinds of value that I think of. There's material value, there's emotional value, and there's spiritual value. Material value takes money. It's a thing. Not everybody has resources to buy things. But emotional value, for me to give you positive feedback, to get you to from A to B, or spiritual, which is a greater energy that you and I can be involved in. Those are the kinds of values that are all necessary. And depending on the situation, I will utilize those kinds of things. So it could be me introducing you to someone. That's not material value. That's value of me helping your career on you should be talking to so-and-so. Or from a spiritual perspective of having a higher power that's going to help you. And so there's many different ways to do it, but I'm looking for an opportunity to help someone get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the three most common value traits that I look at: material, emotional, and spiritual.
All right, well, let's go ahead and double click into each one of those. Let's start with material value. That I think this is probably one that most people think is what value even means in the first place. It's pretty black and white, but it's goods, it's services. Talk to me a little bit deeper about providing material value, what it looks like, and maybe even some examples of how somebody can be a provider of material value to somebody.
Well, when we think of material value, you're thinking of it costs money to do something. It's not about buying a present or a gift for someone. I could be at a restaurant having lunch and I see a client come in and I want to pick up their lunch without them knowing about it. Now, you think about that, the impact that will have on them. that I took the time and energy to take care of their lunch and they didn't know it. And I called them a day later and talked to them. And that's an example of me spending money to create value. That would be an example of material value, or buying a present or buying a good and service. So this is not about how much money you need to spend. Value is so many different ways, but materially, it usually uses money to
Sure.
buy something for someone to create a moment, if you will.
And come on, how many of us don't enjoy, that moment? Maybe you're pulling through the Starbucks drive-through and the person ahead of you paid for your drink, or just like the situation you presented, where maybe the owner of the restaurant knows a family member of yours, or you know them personally, and they say, "Hey, tonight's dinner's on us." I mean, everybody loves being a recipient of that. It makes you feel good, right?
And when you have it done to yourself, Ryan, I'll never forget a time when my wife and I were just married. We were in Palm Springs and we were having lunch, and someone picked up our lunch, and we didn't know what that was all about. And it turned out to be the jeweler for my wife. And we will never forget that moment and how it made us feel, because we wanted to pay it forward and do that for other people. But it was such a wonderful surprise. And those are the little things, but that would be an example. Of course, you can buy a house for someone, you can do this. I mean, it's significant wealth. But in our particular case, you take it bite-sized pieces and doing fun things for people.
No, that's great. Well, let's now start getting into some of the more, I guess, just not tangible pieces of value, if you will. You had mentioned the second one there was emotional value. What do you mean by this? Give me some examples of how somebody would go about providing emotional value. Because, yes, sure, material feels good. It's nice to not have to pay for a dinner bill, but I think emotional value is it's that dark horse, if you will. It's that one that somebody can, man, when it's provided and it's provided well, boy, is that a special moment or a really great interaction you have with somebody.
I think the biggest way, I think, from an emotional value perspective daily, is I'm curious about helping people. And it might be in a job hunt, it might be lining them up with an internship. So I can make an introduction on behalf of someone I'm talking to, that you should be talking to this particular person. I'm going to set up an introduction. That would be an example of value emotionally. But it also could be as simple as me giving them positive feedback on a great tennis match or a golf shot they made. It could be something they're going through some challenges, and me giving them encouraging feedback on, I know they can do it. So it's a variety of positive energy, I would say. But interestingly, how I would apply it is I need to know enough about the person. So that's where I do my discovery and figuring out where their pain points are, and where they want to be. It's really about customizing where they want to be. And then I can then reverse engineer helping them and creating value. It's an introduction. It's positive feedback. Oh, someone's going through an addiction problem. Hey, I know doctors you need to talk about. Oh, you're going through a marriage problem. Hey, I know people you need to be talking. It's a variety of things. So I would say a lot of it's through introductions,
Okay.
emotion.
I like that a lot. And one thing that comes to mind for me is this idea of providing emotional value. It requires effort. When we're talking about material, sure, you may have the resources to be able to pick up somebody's dinner, like in that example you mentioned. And that required some effort, but really the material value of the dollar that was spent is what actually was the effort, if that makes sense. But with emotional effort, it does take a true level of human effort for you to provide that value. So what say you to that level of effort and in somebody kind of summing and willing that up in themselves to go provide that value?
It's doing the little things, Ryan. I think it's a lot of things is doing little things that make a difference. And it's running to the store and getting some sugar for someone that wants coffee. Or we're doing In-N-Out Burger, and I think I'll make a run, give everybody your order. It's these little things that matter. And that's value. I want to do the dirty work and do that for you because I care about you. It's important to me. It happens every day. So emotional value is a biggie, coupled with material value. Then if we bring in the other value, which is spiritual value. What is spiritual value? Everyone worships differently. This is about not a God thing, or it could be a universe thing. So the reality is, I believe there's a higher power, however you want to define it. And I do believe in the law of attraction, meaning if you visualize what you want, it oftentimes happens. So I'm very much a part of positive energy and helping people with the energy. And I'm very energy focused on energy management. So I talk a lot about doing things in your day that make you happier, make you smarter, make you better, make you a better version. So you can call it whatever you want to call it, but I like to say spiritually, not necessarily what your religion is. And there's a lot of folks that have the faith, which is fantastic. There's a lot of people that are more spiritual. So somewhere in there, there's a higher power. That's where I'm going with as far as bringing value.
Sure. And when you leverage that spiritual value for somebody, what's the result? What do you see happen in that person when you help them and provide that level of spiritual value to somebody?
They feel better. I'm offering many solutions that everyone has suffering. Somewhere there's suffering, somewhere there's pain. It could be physical pain or it could be emotional pain. I'm a conduit to helping people, providing value, optimism, confidence, can do. I've seen this before. I know what happens to the stock market going down 2,000 points in a day. I will tell you what's going to happen. It's going to go down, it's going to go back up. I know that. I've been doing this for 39 years, giving people confidence, but that's not necessarily spiritual. It's just wisdom. It's also helping people getting over things that happen in their life. So when I break it down into material, emotional, spiritual, that's really where things fall.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on their circumstances, I'll use leverage to help someone, or it could be a bad breakup. Someone broke up from the girlfriend or boyfriend. Hey, I'm there for you. Hey, it's going to be better. We're going to get through this. I'm here for you. I'm here right now. Let's worry together. So it's spending time with people in tough times.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen so many things in my career, whether it's alcohol related or substance abuse or gambling problems or porn problems or overeating or undereating. I've seen many, many issues. And I think a psychology degree would have been a better degree for me versus a business degree.
Sure.
But being a value creator is really looking for ways to help people. At the end of the day, how can I help you, Ryan? I would need to know about your family and your kids and everything about you to help you. And that's really where I'm coming from. That's the narrative.
Sure. And no, I love this. And when good value is provided in either of these three categories of material, emotional, or spiritual, it's felt at the end of the day. Barry, you're full of great stories. In us getting ready to have this conversation today, you had shared one with me. I mean, you disrupted Wall Street, and by getting to know the kids of some of the wealthy clients that you had worked with in your wealth management business, and by way of that, kind of carved out what you're doing now with Mag 7 Consulting and helping kind of mentor these young minds. And in that process of mentoring some young minds, you've experienced what you had just mentioned, some of those challenges that these young adults are dealing with as they grow up in today's complex world, which seems like it's only getting more complex as each day goes on. So Cheryl, do you have a story for me of maybe one of those young minds that you had worked with where you were able to be there for them, to provide some of this value that we're talking about today, and ultimately what it ended up looking like once that value was provided for them?
I work with many, many young minds around the country. There's one particular back east that has everything, incredibly brilliant, a 4.5, won National Scholar honors. However, this person lost his way and right now is trying to find his steps getting back on the choo-choo train. How do you do that? So the first thing is we need to discover exactly where does the person want to be. And then we reverse engineer and figuring out, okay, how can I create value if the student is ready to grow? There's nothing I can do if the person's not in a growth mindset. If the person's in a growth mindset, we put together a blueprint, a strategy of exactly what they do per week on what I call to actions. And it's measurable. So when I get done with a call, it's not like, oh, it feels great. Oh, I've just talked about it. No, there's a call to action. They have to do 3 or 4 things in that week and report back. That's how you grow. And the reality is everyone is looking to get better, quicker, faster, however you want to define it. My role is to adapt them into the real world and to monetize. At the end of the day, you can be the smartest person in your classroom. How are we going to monetize that on the street? In other words, have the lifestyle that you want. And that's really the game in many ways of what I'm doing. We need to live in this lovely world, and it takes money. You can be a student the rest of your life. I want a PhD, I want to get a master's. Great. At some point, you're going to have to monetize. And many, many, many kids, they don't know how to connect the dots. They don't have the EQ for whatever reason, whether it's social media or whatever. It is what it is. Their people skills are like a 2. 10's the best. Maybe you see some kids that are excellent, very rare. Mm-hmm. I'd say that's in the minority. So my role is hugely needed, and it's a lost art, the art of communication.
Yeah, no, it's lessons like these, understanding these different values that somebody can be to be a value creator and forge some of these great relationships, both personally and professionally in their lives, that can lead them to the kind of success that you're talking about.
And Ryan, if we just took that narrative of value creation, that's the narrative. You're going to create value. Let's just start with that. That's huge. If you have that mindset, you're going to create value. I will just teach you how to do it more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Through a process and being curious and helping other people.
I love that. Barry, we've thrown a lot at our audience today in terms of these different value pieces, how you work with folks to instill some of these life lessons. But if you had to whittle down today's conversation into a few key takeaways, what would you want to leave our audience with so that they can walk away from this episode and have maybe something tangible they could implement in their lives?
The narrative, it's about being more interested than interesting. It's not about you. It's about the other person. Take curiosity and interest in the other person. Find where they're suffering, where their pain points are, and create value on the spot. You can create value on the spot. That's an art. That would be the narrative.
I love it. Well, Barry, look, again, you do these types of, you talk through these lessons, you work with young minds over at Mag 7 Consulting to not just instill this idea of creating value, but so much more beyond that, like the things that we cover in some of our other podcast episodes. So for anybody out there in the audience that's hearing today's conversation and thinking, man, my child could use this, or even if it's a young adult and they're sitting there saying, man, this is something I could probably do more of to strengthen maybe some of those relationships I have. What's the best way somebody could reach out to you and your team and just open up a dialogue so that they can, just learn a little bit more from you?
Sure. Well, it's Barry at mag7consultants.com. That's the email. My phone number is 818-427-6109. And I would love to chat with anyone who has any issues. I'm extremely busy. This business has taken off, and I've hired 4 incredible workers that are working with me right now that are helping me significantly. And I love making a difference and a giant impact in your lives. So Ryan, thank you for everything that you do to make this happen.
Of course. No, I appreciate these conversations, Barry. I think there's a lot of value out there for folks, and looking forward to being back with you on the next one.
Great. All the best.
All right. Awesome, Barry. Thank you. And hey, folks, we're going to take a final moment as we always do. And thank you for stopping by and taking some time out of your day to be with us here on Game Changers. If you enjoyed today's discussion, you learned a thing or two, make sure you hit that subscribe button then on whichever platform you check this out on today so that you don't miss out on any of the past or future conversations that Barry and I will have on this show where we talk through these life lessons. Again, they're lessons to strengthen somebody's personal life, their professional life, and it's ultimately the lessons they never learned in school. Before Barry, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long today, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Game Changers.